Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's daily meditation session with Kyra Lingo. So Friday morning, last session of the week. I hope you're all doing well, and good to see you all logging in and saying hello there in the sidebar. Just a bit of an update about what's going to be happening over the next few weeks. The good news is that Martin is starting to feel a lot better, which is great. So the plan at the moment is that he will be back next week and will lead the meditations next week. And then Kyra will be coming back for the following 2 weeks. So the way we're going to go forward is that they will both be co-hosting these sessions. So Martin next week, Kyra for the 2 weeks after that, and then we will see what happens in terms of what's happening with lockdown, etc. After that. So I will just let you know, if this is your first time here, what's going to be happening this morning. We're here for an hour, and starting with contemplation, meditation, and then we'll be going into Q&A, and Kyra will talk to you a little bit more about the plan for Q&A today when we start. And the other thing I want to say before we move into the session is I just want to talk about dana, which is what I mention every morning. But we do have ongoing costs that we need to meet in order to keep doing this every day. Unfortunately, these sessions are not free to run. We have to pay for this platform. We have to pay for various admin costs. We have to pay for the costs of other bits of software that we use. We reach out to professionals for help in various aspects of the work that we do. We need to pay them as well. And it all really does add up. And the only place we get money from is from your generosity. So if you're able to give anything at all, if you're valuing what we're doing, we'd be really, really grateful if you could give. Really easy to donate. Just click on the donation button, the green button underneath the video screen. And yeah, the donation will go towards helping us with our running costs, and also go towards supporting Kyra. I just realized I forgot to mention about asking a question. I know most of you know how to ask questions now, but if you'd like to come on screen, you can do so. You can use Chrome or Firefox, or if we have problems bringing you on with those two browsers, it seems that Safari is actually quite a good option at the moment. So if you'd like to come on screen using your browser, just type a message in the sidebar where you're all saying hello, and I can bring you on. And the other way to ask a question is there's an ask a question menu item underneath the video screen, and you can click on that and pop your question in writing in there if you prefer to put it in writing. Okay, so I'm going to take myself off. Have a good session and a good weekend, everybody, and I'll see you in a while.
Hi there, everybody, and thank you so much, Caroline. I just want to say I really love working with Caroline and so appreciate your support every morning. And I'm also really happy that Martin is feeling better and that you'll get to benefit from him next week, that he's well enough to come back. And I'm happy that this isn't my last time with you also. So I'll be glad to have him get to share his wonderfulness with you, and then that I'll still get to be with you all too. So for today, I was thinking about, someone wrote in a question about perfectionism, and I just had a few thoughts to share. I think I won't share so much because I'd like us to do the meditation, and then I'd like to have a little more time for questions and answers today. I know there's been some questions that we couldn't get to, and so I thought we'd leave more time for that today so that If you didn't get your question answered, it's a burning question for you, you can ask it, and we'll try to get to it today. But I just have a few thoughts about this question about perfectionism, and it's a real suffering that this sense of stress and kind of putting ourselves in a box of how we need to be and living up to maybe other people's standards, and just the stress of like kind of whipping ourselves into some kind of shape. The story that came up for me is a story I recently heard from a Burmese teacher named Dr. Tintin. She's one of the first women in the Burmese tradition to be a teacher. She's a lay teacher. She's out in California. But she was sharing about when she did her first retreats in Burma. There were 2 monks that were teaching. And she said she was impressed because when they would come in and lead the sessions and have question and answer after the talk, they always seemed so just so relaxed, and also so able to answer any kind of question with a lot of ease, with a lot of clarity, and they would really answer the question. And she was so impressed at their ability to just relaxingly hit the mark every time. And so she asked these monks, how do you do that? What is it that you do to be able to answer people's questions so well? And the teacher said to her, he was speaking for both him and the other monk. He said, we just really empty our minds. We try to keep our minds, totally clear and very spacious, and then whatever needs to come through can come through. And that really touched me, that answer, because when I experience when I'm at my best, and I guess I could say maybe when we are at our best as humans, it's when we are relaxed and when we are trusting and just open, when we just kind of let ourselves rest back and let things come through us rather than thinking we have to create and make something happen. So when I give talks, I'll often tell the audience, we are giving this talk together. I'm not giving this talk by myself. We're co-creating this in the moment. Like, I'm picking up on what's in you, and you're picking up on what's in me, and we're creating this together. It's not me doing something, filling up your minds. It's, and I really find that if I can find that space of openness in me, of not, trying to grip onto something, not trying to control the outcome, then there is this sense of just tuning in, that we're all tuning in to some other frequency, and then the Dharma just happens. The teachings that are needed just show up, and it's no one person's responsible for that or making that happen. So one of the things I was also reflecting on with perfectionism is that it's, in order to create this emptiness, in order to allow this spaciousness so that we can just be in the moment and flow, it really helps to have a friendliness towards ourselves. And that friendliness can really heal the habit of perfectionism. Because if you think about it, perfectionism is inherently, it's a message telling ourselves we're not okay. It's an unfriendliness to ourselves. It's saying, you have to be better. You need to be more than what you are, constantly, right? And my experience is that when we are kind to our minds are naturally more cooperative. Just think of any animal or friend or child. When we're kind to them, there's a much greater inclination that they will want to work with us. And so our minds, there is a harmony that we can reach with our minds when we're not sort of looking at them with this idea of you should be better. And I'm really grateful for the experiences of silent retreats and all of my time in practice, because like in the monastery, but on any retreat that I've been on, I feel like what the underlying power of the practice has been for me is that I am genuinely learning to like myself and make peace with my own mind and my own heart. So when I don't fight it, when I don't want myself to be different, all sorts of wonderful things happen. I mean, alignment happens, and flow happens. And then we access a lot more power when we are not fighting against ourselves, when we let go of the fight. So that's what I'll share for now. And we'll do a practice that I imagine we are going to be co-creating together, because I haven't planned it out or anything too much. So finding your spot, finding your position that's supportive of you. Feeling your body. Letting your awareness really settle in the aliveness of your body. Feeling where your body is making contact with whatever you're sitting on. And letting your body release its weight into the support of the earth. And you could take some deep breaths. And every time you exhale, allowing yourself to fully let go, to release tension, just letting that flow down, down, down into the earth. The earth is really a place we can go for refuge. So let yourself feel the support the strength of the earth. It can take your weight, but can help you to release and unburden yourself, both worries that are in your mind and also tension, tightness in the body. Something I like to do is inhale, and then when I exhale, to audibly sigh. Sometimes that can just really help us to release even more. So feel free to do that with me if you want. Breathing in. As many times as you want. Seeing if you can connect even more to the earth, sending down roots. I like to think of it as it's down into the earth. A sense of aliveness and communication. Getting deeply rooted in the earth. This sense of a two-way support, rooting down and receiving freshness and strength and nourishment from the earth. Really anchoring ourselves deeply. And through our roots, we can let go of whatever isn't helpful for us. We can release. We can unburden. And through our roots, we can also receive. We can be nourished, energized, connecting to the immensity of the earth, the wisdom of the earth, and letting ourselves rest as the earth holds us. We don't have to do anything, just letting the earth hold us, sustain us. Resting, releasing, opening ourselves to receive. And as the earth gives us confidence, as the earth gives us strength and power, naturally there's a greater confidence, there's a greater trust in our own ability to rise. And so we're rooting down, but now we can also unfurl and extend ourselves towards the sky, towards the sun. So this sense of growing up, taking up space, reaching out, extending through all the parts of our upper body. So rooting down through our lower body, and then reaching up and out through our upper body. This spaciousness, connecting with the wisdom, the vastness of the sky, which does not judge us or measure us by standards, but just wants us to unfold, to open into our own unique beauty that is ours to offer this world. So opening up and out to who we are, showing ourselves. Maybe this sense of expanding through the heart, through the chest, letting our light beam out, letting our love express itself with courage. Saying to the world, I am here. I have my role to play, and I'm going to play it fully. Not hold back. Life is too short. Letting ourselves grow up and outward as a beautiful tree, firmly rooted in the earth, but also courageously connected to the sky. Manifesting ourselves fully, without fear. Letting life call out from us that which is needed to be expressed. Emptying ourselves so that we can be a conduit, a channel for what is needed in our environments. letting go of the blockages of perfectionism, of asking ourselves to be some other way than we are, because those prevent the juiciness that we can bring up from our roots. It blocks that sap, that wondrous liquid from nourishing the leaves at the top of our tree. So we get out of our own way. These beliefs we have that we're not good enough, that we should be better, let those flow down into the earth. The earth will help us transform them. So let them go. And we receive through our roots the trust of the earth that we are beautiful just as we are. We are already what we want to become. Trusting in that, basking in that. So that all the goodness that we have access to through our roots can flow without obstruction and make such beautiful flowers and fruits and leaves and branches without obstruction. We can really have fun being who we are. We can enjoy shining and manifesting all that we are. Letting ourselves be just as we are. While it's true that some of our leaves may have holes in them or be a bit eaten by caterpillars, or some branches might be crooked, if we take a step back, a couple steps back, and see the whole tree, it's a beautiful tree. It does not need to be perfect to be wondrous. What tree in nature is perfect? So allowing ourselves to have our flaws, because this is what makes us also unique. And this is where much wisdom comes from. as we learn to befriend and accept our weaknesses, our shadow. Letting ourselves be just as we are. Breathing in and out in the silence now. Just letting ourselves be. And I'm going to mute myself, but I'm still here. Taking in the beauty of your wondrous tree that has been through so much to manifest all that it does now. Deeply respecting the journey that you've been on to manifest who you are today. So letting yourself be just as you are and respecting deeply who you are. as a gesture of respect to yourself, an internal bow, bowing to yourself, to this capacity to root down, to rise up, to manifest yourself fully, to be just as you are. A bow of reverence to yourself, this imperfect and wondrous tree that is beautiful and complete just as it is. Nothing needs to be added, nothing needs to be removed. And it grows more and more into itself each day with our practice. It becomes more and more itself, bowing to that unique, precious suchness of what you bring, of who you are. And we close by zooming out even more to take in the forest of trees that we find ourselves among, all these other practitioners, spiritual friends on this path with us, each of them also beautiful trees, none of them perfect, but exactly what they need to be, providing us with companionship and protection and wisdom and strength. You know, trees talk to each other through their roots. When one tree gets sick, it communicates through its roots, and all the other trees make an antibody against whatever virus attacked the first tree. And they protect themselves in that way. So feeling ourselves connected to each other through our roots. A beautiful forest of spiritual practitioners, not perfect, but exactly what is needed, manifesting in the world. breathing that fragrance in of being enough just as we are. Okay, dear friends. So we'll jump into questions, reflections. You can feel free to share in the chat anything that came up for you in the meditation. And I'm so happy we made it through that meditation without an interruption. Okay, so we'll answer Lizzie's question first. This was from the meditation we did on Tuesday on savoring the good. Where we practice to let the good intensify and grow and swell and expand. So this is Lizzie's question. I loved the feeling of my heart swelling and expanding, savoring the good. You have just explained about how to deal with the negative experience arising. For me, I noticed a welling sadness, very painful, something I've not been aware of before. I thought I had the capacity for boundless happiness. It seems there are limits to my happiness. Thank you for that question, Lizzie. I was in the midst of replying on Tuesday and the internet cut out. I was really excited to answer this, so I'm glad to complete. So one of the things that happens when we connect with these heart practices, like savoring the good, is a heart practice. It's getting in touch with, the emotions of joy, of happiness. One of the ways that they're talked about is as purification practices. So they actually bring up their opposite so that we can see it and work through it. So often when we practice loving kindness, metta, anger will come up, rage will come up, sadness will come up. So when we practice joy and savoring the good, sadness, it's very natural, it's very, it's part of it that it arises. And so when you get in touch with that swelling of the savoring the good, this more space is being created in your heart. And so the sadness that maybe didn't have space to be recognized before, it takes the opportunity to say, I'm here too. You may not have paid attention to me before, and now you're creating more space in your heart. So now I can be seen, I can be understood. So it's a very natural thing that, our joy and our sorrow are very connected. There are two sides of the same coin. And when we get in touch with our joy, we must be in touch with our sorrow. And when we get in touch with our sorrow, we also can be more deeply in touch with our joy. Neuroscientists have found that it's impossible to numb one part of the brain. So when we try to numb our sorrow, our sadness, we actually numb our joy also. We can't get in touch with any of our deep emotions if we try to suppress the negative, the sorrowful feelings. So allowing this swelling to happen, it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with your happiness, that you don't have an infinite possibility of happiness. You do. You do. That's exactly what this experience is showing you, but that you need to make room for the sorrow, and that will help you. If you open to it, don't think of it as anything wrong. If you turn towards it and say yes to it, it will take you to even deeper happiness and joy. So there's nothing wrong with what happened in that practice. It's exactly the right thing. That as you open up, as your heart begins to swell, as you really take in the joy, you must be in touch with the sorrow, because they go together. They go together. There's a wonderful poem I recommend everyone to read. We'll include it in the follow-up on the recording here. It's by Thich Nhat Hanh, and it's called Please Call Me by My True Names. And one of the parts of the poem says, "My joy's like spring so warm, it makes flowers bloom all over the earth. My pain is like a river of tears so vast, it fills the 4 oceans. Please call me by my true names, so I can hear all my cries and laughter at once, so I can see that my joy and pain are one. Please call me by my true names, so I can wake up, and the door of my heart will be left open, the door of compassion." So that understanding that our joy and pain are one. When you deeply touch your joy, you will open to your sadness. And that's how it is. That is the way it works. And when you deeply open to your sadness, you will touch your joy too. They don't come on their own. If you can touch it with mindfulness, with understanding, with acceptance, not thinking it's wrong. Yeah? Thank you for your question, Lizzie. Very important. So I'll just go from the top now for the other questions. This is from Anne. You mentioned something in the last days that when the body dies, the mind continues on. I would like to understand this more. Is it that the mind heart that continues? How does this relate to the soul? So I have to be very honest and say I have no experience myself with knowing what happens when our body dies. But I have listened to wise teachers, so I trust what they have shared, but I can't tell you I know for myself. But what I understand is that this is from Chogyam Trungpa, when someone asked, and he said, your bad habits, that's what continues. He was a very kind of humorous teacher. But it means, it's like the meditations we did the last 2 days on contemplating death, the contemplations on death. All that goes on when our body dies is what we have cultivated during this life in our minds, in our mind-heart. So it's the actions, it's the thoughts, it's the intentions, the imprints. If we've imprinted on our mind a lot of attachment, a lot of fear, a lot of discrimination, that's what keeps going. That consciousness keeps going. If we've imprinted a lot of peace, a lot of generosity, a lot of love, a lot of non-fear, that's what keeps going. It's the mind states that we've cultivated. And, in Buddhism, there's not a real concept of the soul. That's in the Hindu tradition that was there when the Buddha was practicing in India. That was the the belief that a soul reincarnated, the Atman, and the Buddha didn't espouse that there is no self that continues, but there is a stream of consciousness that continues, but not a self, and that's why it's so important that we practice to cultivate in our daily lives the mind states that we want to have when we are on our deathbed, when we're dying, so that at that moment of death, we can have the best, the most skillful mind states arising in our mind, because that's what determines what comes next. So it's not a soul, it's a stream. And there's many good resources out there. My mind is a bit blanking right now, but maybe we can put some resources in the follow-up of this talk. There's like the Tibetan book of dying, that discusses in great detail the bardos and what the process is according to that tradition when someone passes away, what happens to their consciousness as it finds its way into new forms. So I hope that's somewhat helpful, Anne. Good. So this is from Clive. Could you say a little about faith? And I'm not sure what faith means in Buddhism. Sure. It's a very important energy. It appears in many lists in Buddhism. It's one of the 5 powers. Faith is the first of the 5 powers. It's faith, and then it's diligence, and then mindfulness, and then concentration, and then insight. So it's this power that helps you to keep going in your path, to be diligent. You can be diligent if you have faith that this is a path that will help you. But basically, faith in Buddhism is not blind faith. It's not something that you have because you read something in a book or you heard someone speak something. In the Kalama Sutra, the Buddha speaks to a group of spiritual devotees and says, don't believe anything because someone who's a teacher says it, or because it's in the scriptures, or because it's been passed down from generation to generation. He said, don't believe what I say, even I'm the Buddha. Believe if you put it into practice and it works for you. So one of the definitions, one of the characteristics of the Dharma is come and see for yourself. It's not something you have to take on anyone else's word. You apply the teachings, and if they work for you, then you have faith in them. So faith in Buddhism is really understood as seeing for yourself. And if it works, then you do it. And that's a much deeper faith than basing on what other people have told you, or some pressure, external pressure to believe in something. So Buddhism is not a professed practice where you profess to believe in this or you have to subscribe to this. There's a book even called Buddhism Without Beliefs. So you don't have to have any belief. You don't have to believe in reincarnation to practice. That's a hard one for Westerners, right? We hear Eastern teachers speaking about it with a lot of authority, like this is just the truth. But we don't have experience. For most of us, maybe if you've had an out-of-body experience, then you can see for yourself if there's some consciousness that exists outside the body. But for most people, we don't have any personal experience with reincarnation. So how can we say, yes, it's true, or no? So I don't talk about it like that, as true or not true. I don't ask people to believe in it. I just practice. And if in your practice it arises in a way that makes sense for you, good. If not, you don't have to, it's not essential. You can let it go. You can do all, do the teachings that make sense to you, that work for you. So they're not specific things you must believe in Buddhism. And I like that. It's very free. It's very, respects everyone's own right to think and come to their own conclusions. So I hope that's gives some clarity about faith. It's a very important quality. It really gives a lot of energy on our path. So this is now a question from Rivka. In my advanced age, is the need to write and tell my memories to my children and other grandchildren looked upon as another attachment or just unfinished business? Thank you. Well, I often think about my great-grandmother lived to be 101. My grandmother lived to be 93. I was just thinking the other day, I would love to have known more about their lives. And now they're gone. I did hear many stories from my great-grandmother. But I think of questions now, like, what was it like? How did they deal with this? How did they, learn that? But I can't ask them now. I suppose I could ask them in me. But if I put myself in your children and grandchildren's shoes, I would very much love to know more about my grandparents, my great-grandparents. So I suppose, you could just inquire about what's your intention of wanting to write and tell your memories to your children. It's a very precious thing for a child, a grandchild, to know more about where they come from and their lineage. If your intention is to help them understand you better, to help them understand themselves better, I don't think it's attachment. I think it's quite a gift. I think I would just invite you to sit with your intention for why you wish to share your memories and your writing. And just another thing about that is, one time a reporter came to Thai and said he wanted to write a book about Thai, Thich Nhat Hanh, and Thomas Merton, because they had been friends. Thomas Merton's a Benedictine Trappist monk. And Thai agreed to give him an interview, but he really kind of poked him back and said, you should write a book about yourself. Don't worry about a book about me. And he said that to all of us in the next Dharma talk. He said, all of you should write a book about yourself. It's the most interesting topic. You want to learn about yourself. Look deeply into yourself to see what makes you happy, what makes you suffer, and write a book about that. So I think if you take Thai's advice, Rivka, you could write a book about your life. It's a good way to learn about ourselves. Okay, this is a question from Alice. Thank you, Kyra, for a beautiful meditation. Often when I try to let my choices and actions arise from an empty mind, what I feel arises is still conditioned reactive states or compulsive thought patterns. Do you have any further advice on creating the kind of blank space that allows for an authentic or more connected self to be expressed? Thank you, Alice. Well, to me, it's very important that you're able to recognize that what arises is still reactive or compulsive. If that means you have a lot of mindfulness, because if you didn't, you would identify with those reactive states or compulsive thought patterns. So maybe one thing you could do when those arise is to create space for them. When the conditioned reactive states come up, when the compulsive thought patterns come up, don't resist them, don't make them wrong. You know, when we create space in our mind, it's a little bit like Lizzie's question. We have to welcome whatever comes, because whatever comes is supposed to be there. There's nothing wrong with what comes. So it's like purification. When we meditate, when we sit, all sorts of thoughts come up. Thoughts that we don't have necessarily time or space for in our regular life. That's kind of like some kind of circulation that needs to happen. And so letting it be there, but with mindfulness, not getting engaged in it, not buying into the story, but saying, oh, hello, here you are, reactivity, welcome. I'm also here with you, mindfulness. I'm aware of you. Let's be together. I serve you some tea. Let me listen to what you'd like to share with me. Hello, my compulsive thought patterns. I welcome you. Let me become intimate with you and get to know you well. Let me receive what you want me to learn. So rather than, the thing that really knocks us off is when we strive to have a particular experience. So if we think, oh, I want to empty my mind, and then anything else that comes up is an obstacle, and then we create more suffering. No, these reactive thoughts are wrong. No, these compulsive thoughts, they're preventing me from getting to the state of an empty mind. That's more suffering. So the way we get to that blank openness is by accepting whatever is there. None of it's not supposed to be there or some mistake. Yes, we want to have this empty, open space, but the things that help us get there are the things that come up, that are agitating. And as we learn to be with them, as we learn to accept them, that is the path to coming into more spacious, authentic, connected self. So it's the mud that produces the lotus. Sometimes we just want to jump over the mud and get to the lotus, but it's not possible. So all those things that come up, that's the mud, and you want to welcome the mud. So if you can be in the mud, then you can be the lotus. You can't be the lotus without the mud. Okay, I think I can do one more because we're already a little over time. So I'll answer Christiana's. But I'll be back in another week so we can keep exploring these things together. This is Christiana. How can we relate our acceptance of being as we are to the idea of doing our best to ameliorate ourselves? Yes, very important. So Suzuki Roshi, a Japanese Zen teacher, said something like, you're perfect as you are, and you can improve. Something like that, a bit of a paradox. We need to accept ourselves as we are, and yet, what I mentioned to Clive, the faith, it leads to diligence. As we discover we have something we can really rely on in this path, it helps us to really apply ourselves. And we apply ourselves because we know there's always more we can learn. One of the definitions of a bodhisattva in the Buddhist teachings is someone who's always open to learn more and never thinks that they've learned everything there is to know. So it's an attitude of humility, of curiosity. It's said there are 10,000 Dharma doors, so you can never know all of the Dharma doors. There's more, always many more to learn. So this sense of accepting ourselves as we are, and then it's not that we are criticizing ourselves, that we should be better. It's this sense of love to learn new things. That's what keeps us going on our path. Each day is a new day, right? It's never come before, so we can learn something in every new day. So we accept ourselves as we are, and we open ourselves to always grow and learn and deepen in our practice. So that's how I would answer that. That it comes from a place of love for ourselves, that we want to keep deepening our path. It doesn't come from a place of I'm not good enough as I am. Yeah. Thank you for the wonderful questions, you all. I wish you a very good weekend. Have a lovely week with Martin. I'll be thinking of you all and keeping you in my heart, and I will see you in 10 days. Much love.